Okay. All right, welcome everyone to Books for My Soul, Meet the Author series, where we meet our favorite authors and we get to interact with them. Today we are with Jimmy Nzioki, a prolific author who's written several books, but we'll be focusing on one of his books, actually his most recent, and he'll tell us more about it. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Polly, for having me, and I'm so glad to be here.
Wonderful. So Jimmy, I'll ask you to speak up as we continue. Speak a bit louder so we can hear nicely. Tell us a little bit about your writing journey. When did you start writing? Or in fact, I think let me share a little bit of a secret before you start. You know, our audience, Jimmy told me that the first book he wrote, he was 18 years old. And I was so impressed. Actually, that's part of the reason I've invited him here, because that's no mean feat. Writing and publishing your first book as a teenager is a major, major accomplishment. So congratulations, Jimmy. And then he tells me now, a few years later, this is his fourth book that we're going to discuss today. And he'll give us the title in a minute. And his fifth one is still in the works, and we are likely to see it later this year. So congratulations, Jimmy. Tell us about your most recent book. And before you do that, tell us about your writing journey from when you're 18, how many books you've written, and what you write about.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. It's always strange to hear someone else introduce you. Yeah, but my writing journey actually began in December of 2014. Late December 2014, just finished high school. We were waiting for the release of our results, and I felt this prompting, and later is when I'd come to acknowledge that that was actually the Holy Spirit nudging to pen down my experiences. Back then I didn't own a laptop. That was 2014, so that's quite some time, and all I had was the traditional exercise books and biro pen, and I used, I think, 3 of them, 120 pages each.
Wow.
Just word by word, line by line, sentence by sentence. And I never told my parents what I was doing back then until I had finished everything. So I sat them one day and told them, I have been doing this. I know you thought I was studying CPA, but in my spare time, the reason why I would stay for hours in my bedroom was, the study room rather, was because I was putting together my story.
Wonderful. So you filled 3 books, 360 pages.
Yes.
With your first book. What's the title of that book?
It's called Genius is Made, Not Born.
So I guess you were the first genius you are writing about. Geniuses are made and not born.
Yes.
Wonderful. So what is your focus in writing? Apart from that first book, what do you like writing about?
Mainly, I prefer, think later, like any other trade or skill, as you grow in it, you discover areas with which you write with more ease than others, and that for me became the start. I pivoted now purely to Christian literature because I realized majority of text I would consume, enjoy. I personally use our daily bread devotionals. That was the devotional I was first introduced to when I was young, and I've used it ever since. And our family has this culture of reading the Bible every day, except maybe for Saturday and Sunday. Because we do reviews on Sunday of what we learned in church, but that culture of reading the Bible systematically given me, let me say, a great overview of what the whole Bible is about, what all the I now tend to think of scripture differently.
Yeah.
I've interacted with it since I was young, and still learning new things every day.
Yeah.
And what impressed me to kind of nudge towards that direction is I would realize that anytime I would give talks, people would say, wow, that I didn't even see that. I didn't even know that. And I've read the same text for
Yeah.
years.
Mm.
So such comments would push me to write articles. I didn't own a website back then until recently. So most of my articles I'd put as, I'd ask my friends who had blogs, I've written this article, kindly put it up on your blog. And the rewards would be very interesting because the blog would receive unusual traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, like there's one friend of mine who put up an article and she got a lot of comments. I think that was the highest number of comments she had ever received.
Yeah.
Blog. And years later, that became the title of my book, The Gift of Presence.
The Gift of Presence. That was book number 2 or 3.
That was book number 3.
Wow. And now the current book that we are discussing, I can see there are 40 illustrations for public speakers. Tell us about it. Sounds a little bit different from Bible reading. Tell us about it. Why did you write it? What is it about? And who is it for?
Okay. Why I wrote it, I think the inspiration to write this is the time I was seated in Garden City at the grounds, just reflecting. It was going through a hard time. I think it was a period where I was reflecting after the death of my maternal grandma. And then I was just penning down ideas that were coming into my mind of future book projects that I would love to do. One of them, I actually titled it Modern Day Parables Project.
All right.
Based off of the way Christ would teach and how even children are able to remember Bible stories better.
Yeah.
The parables that Christ used. But then later on, as I matured in the faith, I thought, why not compile stories that, one, are relevant to the faith, the Christian faith, and even outside, some are a bit motivational, but majority are within the context of the Christian faith. And I said, why, if Christ will use everyday stories, everyday relatable kind of anecdotes, we know them today as parables, why not do the same for our time? How the idea was birthed.
Wonderful. So the way I get it, these are short stories. And earlier you told me some of them are funny, yes. Some are humorous, others are reflective, they make your audience think. But the way I understood it, it's like these are short stories, 40 short stories for people who are doing public speaking, maybe authors, maybe even authors, pastors, orators, anyone who is before an audience and wants to make their speech or their whatever they're speaking about memorable. Am I right?
Yes, you're actually right. Even that part of authors.
Yeah.
Inspiration came. I was actually reading a book. It was a bit theologically dense. It's a book written by Pastor Daniel Gishana of Deliverance Church. And every time he'd begin a new topic, he'd use a short illustration, mostly illustrations. And I found that very interesting and intriguing. I actually finished reading the book and actually began. The idea, the seed actually was revived and grew from reading a book that was totally unrelated with I've written today. But I actually contacted him via email. The email he had put on his front, on his Vassal or the copyright page, alongside a review, a book review. You can also find the book review of the same on my website. And Yeah, and from then on, I told him, by the way, I think your book really inspired me to collect these stories and other illustrations I read from other books long ago.
Wonderful. So what you're telling me as an author, because I'm also an author, if I'm invited to speak, I can take your book and pick one of those 40 short stories and use them as I'm delivering my speech for the day.
Yes. Exactly.
Wonderful. And my audience will remember everything I said. Okay, read for us one of those. I'm so excited. I've read a few, and several of them have stayed in my mind. But read for us one that you think will stick in our minds for a long time and we can use in our next speech.
Oh, okay. So I'll read one. It's the fourth one in the book. 4 out of 40. It's called Bad News, Good News, and More Bad News.
Wow.
Okay, so it goes like this. A pastor stood before his congregation and said, I have bad news, I have good news, and I have more bad news. The bad news is the church needs a new roof. The congregation groaned. The good news is we have enough money for the new roof. A sigh of relief rippled through the gathered crowd. Then the pastor said, the bad news is it's still in your pockets.
It's still in our pockets. I'm going to pinch that one. I'm going to pinch that one. That one will stick, especially when you're in that kind of context.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I know I've seen a lot of good speakers begin with something funny. Even some of the, some of the pastors that we see even on TV, many of them begin with a short story or something funny or something memorable to lighten the mood or to introduce the topic. And so I can see where you're going with this book. Excellent. I don't know if you have it with you, you can show us how it looks and tell us. Yeah, I can see a bit of the top there. 40 illustrations for public speakers. Excellent. And the book can be found at Books for My Soul. How much is it going for, Jimmy?
Okay, the book is going for 400 shillings as an ebook and 500 as a print book. Okay, excellent. So on Books for My Soul, you can get it as an ebook in EPUB format. It's an instant download, and you get to read it. And I've gone through it. I've seen some of those illustrations, some of those short stories. As I said, some of them are funny. Some will stay in your mind for a long time. And I can assure you, next time you're before an audience, you'll have something powerful to say before you begin your speech. So thank you very much. Jimmy, any last words you'd like to tell us? Or final word concerning your book, concerning your journey? For one, I can say good books are like fertilizer to the mind. Yeah, true. Fruitful. Say that again. Good books are like fertilizer to the mind. It makes you fruitful. Wonderful. This is excellent. Thank you so much, Jimmy. We hope to see you again. But in the meantime, looking forward to actually finishing this book. I started reading it. Looking forward to going through it. Yes, I did. Wow. And I found it very interesting. And like I said, I have a few anecdotes, a few short stories already up my sleeve. And thank you so much for that resource. God bless you and see you next time on Books for My Soul. Thank you, everyone. Go down to booksformysoul.com, look for Jim Nzioki, the book 40 Illustrations for Public Speakers, and another one also there, an earlier book he had published, and you'll be able to buy and download immediately. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jimmy. See you next time.